Hello. So here we are. It's episode 45. If I seem a little bit down, it's because I just found out the Queen died. So I've been sat in my little WeWork with tears, and people are looking at me really strangely because I'm like, why is she crying? But anyway, we won't talk about that too much because I'll start crying again. But there you go. That's the human side of founder life. Um, Before that news, though, I was having a really good week. So that's good. And week as in it's been really stressful, but I'm really proud of myself as well because I've been doing lots of things that have really pushed myself outside of my comfort zone. And when you're working on your own, it's like there's nobody holding your feet to the fire. It's literally you keeping yourself motivated. Nobody's saying, "Oh, you should do this thing because it's really scary." Um, like even though it could be beneficial, there's nobody to say you have to take your medicine. It's just like you do it or you don't do it. So what did I do? So three things. Firstly, I'd applied for the Outland residency. Well, I had an interview for it, so I don't know how that went yet. I think I might hear by tomorrow, but I don't know. Regardless, I did it, and I'm really pleased that I did it. The second thing was I spoke on a panel about entrepreneurship for my undergrad university. So I spoke on this panel that Durham University did here in New York. And I felt significant imposter syndrome because the other panelists were amazing and they were both very established in their field, currently in VC. Ina was also like a prior founder as well. And Aaron has just been, all over the place in finance and now has like a family office and is investing and advising other corporations as well in terms of how to run their businesses. So that was hard, but I was really pleased with how it went. And again, just for raising my hand and saying I'm going to give it a go. And I think that's all you can do. And as a result of that, I've met some great people and it felt good. It felt really good. So although it was very cold, but I think that kept me awake and alert. And I met the actual venue was amazing too. And I think they could now be hosting an event for the knowledge shop, which could be fun. So Phil, it was a place called the Westerly, and Phil, who runs that, is actually an architect and it's his meeting room. But he was just a really nice guy, and I think it would be great to do something regularly with them, or even just a one-off. We shall see. And then the third thing was this is even more random. Like this is a real glimpse into my life. And I think, I'm just, victim's the wrong word, but because I do so many random things, I guess random things come to me as well. And the joys of building in public, because you never know where they're going to go. So this week I was randomly contacted by a production company who create programs for Bloomberg television, and especially this one was around entrepreneurship, and so they were like, hey, if you're interested in finding out more, we're currently what's the term, like recruiting, that's the wrong word, but anyway, you know what I mean, recruiting for the next series. If you're interested, get in touch. And so I was like, I'm so early in comparison to the other people who they feature. I mean, they're covering like big tech, science, big breakthroughs, technological breakthroughs, people who are really, really established. And here I am with my little, in effect, 10-week startup, because although I've been building the knowledge shop, I've gone through so many different pivots. It's a completely different beast now than it was when I first started with the incubator program. And so anyway, I raised my hand again and I said, yes, I'm more than happy to talk to you and to just find out, because I thought, if nothing else, A, it's really interesting and it's nice to have been asked, but B, maybe I could be some sort of scout, and if I find out more about what they're looking for, then maybe I'm in a better position to try and advise other people and also, send people their way. So that's what I did. And I had this call, met this guy called Ed. He seemed really lovely, very personable, very approachable. And it really sort of, I think, dispelled some myths that I'd built up in my head. And now clearly, yes, it wasn't the right fit. I was not in the right place. But it was also just really interesting to have gone through that process, so that if in future, and this is clearly a big if, But if in future somebody does contact me again, I sort of have a sense of how it might go and what they're looking for. And I posted on Chief and I said, hey, you know, somebody contacted me, what would you suggest? And I got a great video from this Paula was her name. I'll put the link here in the show notes. Who is like a media veteran. She advises people in like how to, you know, guest appearances and stuff. But she'd done a whole mini session on pitching ideas to TV producers and journalists, and so that was really useful. So I watched that. And so again, it was just all these people sort of giving help and advice, and then nearly like 30 minutes before the call, I nearly pulled out. But I'm really glad I didn't. I mean, the kicker of it all was that it ended up being a pay to play. So it was like, oh well, even if you were selected, you'd still have to be okay with spending like $54,000. So it was like an advertorial, which I'm all for that. You know, it's just if you don't necessarily know it up front, then it's a little bit harder. But I've got to think, actually, you know, if you were to buy that type of media and exposure, and it's a content development agency as well, because, you know, they're going to film it all and edit it all for you, and then you can use it later on however you wish, I guess. And you've got their brand beside it, and the bragging rights for having just been on Bloomberg and or, you know, whatever other company it might be. And I've got to think that probably isn't a huge amount of money. But anyway, the point being, I didn't get it, but I tried. And I think there's a lot to be said for just putting your name out there and just trying. Just people will come to you, people will be attracted to you, and you just don't know how things are going to go. And so at the moment, I'm just saying yes to things. And then, yeah, and there was somebody else that came to me. Oh, that's right. And then somebody else I met recently at one of my events, he was like, hey, I'm throwing this party. Do you want to come? It'll be like, I love other startup founders. Somebody else messaged me and said, hey, do you want to come to this small group startup thing I'm doing? I don't know where any of these things are going, but it's always about people. And the more you talk to people, the more you tell people what you're doing, the more that things come to you. And I'm really starting to feel that. I'm starting to feel much more confident, much more powerful in the way I explain things. Even the Bloomberg conversation, after I'd explained what I was doing, he was like, oh, it sounds like you're, you know, in effect, it's like mini think tanks. And so now I've got this idea of think tanks going through my head. I met with a fantastic founder friend earlier. Shout out to Kylie Robertson, who is a brilliant marketer, PR specialist. If anybody's in the travel or tech space and looking for somebody to partner with, brainstorm with, help develop ideas, she's your girl. I'll link to her as well. But she was like, oh, what you should do is you should think about how you can turn the knowledge shop into a verb. You know, like you say, oh, you know, I'm hoovering, or you know, I need a plaster, or I used a plaster, or I don't know, that's probably a bad example, you know, but when you take a brand name and it becomes a verb, you know, Google, that's a much better example. Google, Hoover, whatever. You know, moving forward, it's like, oh, well, we're not going to brainstorm, we're going to knowledge shop it. Like, can I become the verb? Like, oh, that's really interesting. So I love that idea. And so we were just like talking about, you know, different ways of customer acquisition and host acquisition and stuff. But again, the reason I sort of talk about that is just the power of community and having people around you. And I would never have started riffing like that if it weren't for her. But again, we were together in the real world, just, you know, chatting with no real agenda other than we just love startup stuff and brainstorming and ideating. And off the back of that, you know, maybe we can do something together. Who knows? But I think we just have a mutual respect for what each other is doing, and if we can help each other, fantastic. And she's come to some of the events as well, so you might get to meet her. If you come to an event, you might get to meet her too, so that would be good. But I think overall it's been a really, really great week, and I'm sort of pleased with how it's gone. I'm just checking the time. Oh no, God, 10 minutes already. I'm just chat. I guess that's why you listen to it. The other thing, I've moved most of the videos I've done now onto YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel. That's very exciting. And I also try to do this podcast as a YouTube live, but apparently you have to request access to do that. So I have to wait, I think it's 24 hours in order to do that. So we'll see if I get that. I'm also obviously still building out the website. I'm very late in getting Marina some stuff, so that's sort of gone a little bit on hold, but only temporarily. Don't go thinking it's not happening. 100% it's happening, but I just owe her some stuff, so that's going to be coming to her tomorrow. And then I'm starting to think about hiring, which is really crazy to be thinking about. Not necessarily full-time, but like part-time contract people, because I could really use some help with marketing. I could really use some help with running the events. One person very kindly tonight said, hey, I know you're going to be traveling. Do you need some help with running the event? So we're going to chat about that tonight. Again, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but it's a bit scary too. It's about, I'm starting to go from, sorry, my phone's blowing up. It's quite an interesting move, I guess, to go from, this is my baby, to now I'm starting to like open my hands and that, if you love something, set it free type thing. I know I need to do that. I know I have to delegate things. And so, so the marketing piece is the next big thing. The event piece is the next big thing. And then we'll see where else that goes. But I'm excited to see. And like I said, I think I've got some real potential, real momentum going right now. And there are people who are interested in hosting events. And I think there is some real opportunities right now. So I'm going to try and double down on all of that hosting piece, even if it's not the founders themselves hosting right now, even if it's just spaces. And I think that would work equally well with the knowledge shop. Let's get knowledge shopping and see what happens. So that's that. I've also written down in my notes here, customer acquisition thoughts, my host outreach. I feel like I've covered that, and I'm not 100% certain what I meant when I wrote that down beyond just brainstorming, different host types. Do I start contacting service providers like law firms, marketing agencies, dev agencies? Do I start contacting accelerators, for example, to host? The co-working spaces, yes, but entrepreneurial companies who are doing things that are really interesting. Companies are all about innovation and entrepreneurship. So could that be, I'm making this up, like EY, people who are looking for the next big thing? Could it also be, the knowledge expert recruiting companies? And so recruiting someone like research companies. So those who, I get contacted about this a lot, people who are looking for like an hour-long conversation just to get my thoughts on, media or the New York Times or whatever. They've all got offices. Maybe I could speak to them and do some events there. So we'll see, but that's where I'm focusing right now. There's momentum, stuff is happening, and I'm really pleased with where it's going. And I'm so busy. I haven't been this busy in a really long time. So with that, I'm going to end on a high, just like Queenie, RIP. But from a business perspective, I'm really pleased with where it's going. So with that, have a great week, everybody, and I will speak to you next week. Bye.